INSEE is a proud member of the Siam City Cement Group Public Limited, a leading cement manufacturer in Southeast Asia. The Siam City Cement Group provides world-class construction materials to a host of countries around the world. This includes Cambodia, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia and Sri Lanka. With a plethora of landmarks and buildings that define the skylines of these countries, the Siam Cement Group pledges to be a role model in corporate governance and sustainable development. INSEE Cement, Sri Lanka's premier cement manufacturer, is the brand behind our country's leading cement products and the driving force behind making Sri Lanka more sustainable. With a reputation built on outstanding performance in the quality of our products, unparalleled customer service, the dedication of our employees, our respect for the communities in which we operate, and our ambition to set the standards for the industry of tomorrow, we have contributed to the growth of Sri Lanka with iconic developments across the island. Just to name a few: the Lotus Tower, Altair Residencies, the Colombo South Harbour, Southern Expressway, Mattala Airport, the Kalladi Bridge, the Kotalavala Defence University, Mahinda Rajapaksha International Cricket Stadium. INSEE has cemented its position as the most preferred local manufacturer of cement in Sri Lanka, with its widespread distribution network comprised of over 7,000 dealers in retail segment located island-wide. Today, we have 2 plants in Puttalam and Galle and 2 terminals in Galle and Colombo. INSEE's Sunstar brand is Sri Lanka's first cement product to be awarded the Green Labelling certification by the Green Building Council and was the first blended cement to launch in Sri Lanka. INSEE has a wide portfolio of cements and services to suit all your construction needs. The most popular among them, INSEE Sunstar, INSEE Mahavalley Marine Plus, INSEE Extra for mass pouring concrete, INSEE Rapid Flow Plus, INSEE EcoCycle, INSEE Concrete, Conwood by INSEE, state-of-the-art innovation and development facility. Having been a part of Sri Lanka for almost a decade, we will continue to build on our long heritage of shared loyalty, creating trusting relationships with our business partners, people and community, and delivering our promise of building the nation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome all of you to the Eye to Eye, INSEE Eye to Eye, INSEE Innovation to Industry Knowledge Sharing webinar session for month of February 2021. Let me welcome all of you on behalf of the INSEE management, or you introduce as Siam City Cement Lanka Limited, INSEE Cement Management. So today's Eye to Eye knowledge sharing webinar session is the 8th INSEE Eye to Eye knowledge sharing webinar session that we conduct. And also we can identify today's webinar, the knowledge sharing session, as the 23rd knowledge sharing session conducted by INSEE Cement. So I think 23 times that we have engaged with our fraternity in order to share the knowledge, share the experience, share the exposure, which we think one of the salient, one of the critical features in order to gain knowledge and to develop our fraternity day by day, step by step. So today's session will be a very interesting session, because this session, if we talk about this session, this subject is one of the key subjects that we as Sri Lankans are very much proud of when we talk about our history. So today's topic is ancient irrigation systems in Sri Lanka and engineering learnings. Ancient irrigation systems in Sri Lanka and engineering learnings. We have invited to a very a person that who has hands-on experience and throughout her career on the same topic, Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa, former Director General of Irrigation Sri Lanka. When we talk about irrigation works in Sri Lanka date back to the year 300 BCE, and evolved during the reign of kings into one of the most complex irrigation systems of the ancient world. What can we learn from these ancient irrigation systems to apply in the current context? So that is our topic today. So INSEE Cement continues to facilitate our monthly knowledge sharing sessions online to ensure the health and safety of our stakeholders. We look forward to hosting you at the INSEE Eye to Eye collaboration space again. Until then, we are engaging with you through our webinar sessions. So in order to do the welcome speech and welcome our guest speaker, guest presenter today, and also all the invitees today, our audience today, I would like to invite one of our young engineers of our team, of our INSEE team, Assistant Manager Pre-Sales, INSEE Pre-Sales, Mr. Buddhika Madhusankar. Buddhika is a very energetic and an enthusiastic young engineer in our fraternity. So Buddhika, over to you to welcome the audience.
Thank you, Dishan. Thank you for the opportunity. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, rather than introducing us as just a cement company, we always feel proud to introduce us as a fully integrated cement manufacturer in Sri Lanka. We feel so Sri Lankan when we call like that. And we also call this is Sri Lankan cement. So today's awareness session is very special one. Actually, why it's special for INSEE is usually we do so many blended products. Today, we are not only introducing our blended solutions, but what we are doing is we are blending and sharing the ancient proud irrigation techniques with the modern world in order to find better solutions to the modern world. So this is a good opportunity for all of us, to the industry and to INSEE also. So without further descriptions, I would like to warmly welcome our guest speaker, former Director General of Irrigation, Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa, and all other participants representing different stakeholder groups like contractors, consultants, and also from university and also government authorities. So again, I'm welcoming all of you to this session, and I hope we all can gather and have a very fruitful session in next few hours. Thank you, Dishan.
Thank you very much, Buddhika. Buddhika Madhusankar is our Assistant Manager for INSEE Pre-Sales. Thanks for your nice welcome note. And before we hand over the session to our guest speaker, guest presenter, Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa, I believe that it's my pleasure and my duty to introduce Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa to the audience. I take this as a privilege to introduce a personality who has immense of knowledge and experience in the context to the audience, to this fraternity. Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa graduated from University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka in 1978 in BSc Engineering Civil Stream and obtained Master of Development Technologies from University of Melbourne, Australia in 1994. She retired from government service as Director General of Irrigation in January 2015 after continuous service of 36 years in the irrigation department in various capacities. She has immense experience on planning, designs, construction, operation, rehabilitation, and management of water resources projects, and specialized in dam safety. She is the author of the book Irrigation Development in Sri Lanka, a centenary publication volume of Institution of Engineers of Sri Lanka. Mrs. Kamaladasa also has published more than 40 technical papers related to water resources development, disaster management, and dam safety, discussing also related legal, environmental, and social issues. She has been a visiting resource person for many public training institutions and universities in Sri Lanka. She has also translated many international publications on water resources management into Sinhala. She has represented the country and the irrigation department in numerous international and national forums. She actively participates in many activities of International Commission of Large Dams, International Commission of Irrigation and Drainage, and Institute of Engineers of Sri Lanka. As a member of different technical committees, a mentor for young engineers, and a reviewer of technical papers of these professional organizations. She has served as a convener of many national and international sessions and outreach programs in water sector. Currently working as a freelance consultant on governance, legal matters, environmental impact assessment, feasibility studies, climate change impact, and gender issues on water resources sector, and advisor to the Ministry of Irrigation. Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa, Madam, may I invite you to address the gathering, address the audience, and present your presentation on ancient irrigation systems in Sri Lanka and engineering learnings. Madam, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Saminder, and all the EC team. I will first try to share my screen.
Madam, we can see your slides now. Yeah, we can see your screen now. At the same time, I would like to invite the audience to put your questions in the Q&A forum. You can see the Q&A forum. Whoever who want to ask the questions, you can put it in the Q&A. Sorry for the disturbance, Madam.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. Shankar, good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank INSEE Group for devoting their monthly technical discussion to this little known subject. I know most of you joining today are engaged in various development projects and always busy looking at the latest development technology as mentioned previously. So however, I presume that spending your time on this type of topics will also lead you to think out of your specialization and provide you with different insights. So I will try my best to share only very related information which you may not find elsewhere within the given time. So my presentation will cover briefly these topics, and I will go to the next slide. To appreciate the wonders in ancient technology, we need to know how much this subject is complicated before going into the details of ancient wonders. So as some of you in the audience may not familiar with the process of developing irrigation infrastructure, in the next few slides, I will briefly share an overview of the process. Engineering interventions are needed from the very beginning, from the reconnaissance and surveys. You can see in this graph, the surveys done to from reconnaissance surveys done to assess the feasibility to the end of the useful life. So if things move smoothly, time needed to complete the feasibility study may take at least 2 years. Then for the construction of a large dam project, a minimum of 5 years, and even with all the modern machinery fleets at your disposal. So that is the normal pattern of developing a water resources project. After the construction, the first filling, you can see the operation, the construction and commissioning has been mentioned in the chart. So after the first filling of the reservoir, that has to be done under vigilance. Statistics show that more than 50% of the dam failures had occurred during the first filling. Well-known such failure in the ancient world is Sadd el Kafara Dam that was built across Nile River in Egypt during 2500 BC. So as a water supply reservoir, that was built as a water supply reservoir, people working for the pyramid. So it was reported that the Egyptians have given up the construction of dams after the failure of that dam at the first instance. So there's no need to say that at each step, involvement of highly experienced engineers and specialists is necessary, as most of the decisions are mainly found on engineering judgments. So institutional capacity is very vital here, not only the personalities, experts having past experiences, set guidelines and specifications, skilled workers, skilled technicians. All these have to be combined together to make it happen. So unfortunately, none of these, their names are not seen in any plaques that are fixed. So at each of the step, it is a teamwork. You can identify decisions need to be taken collectively, taking the subject specialist view into the point. So if I go into little deep, if I take one activity for you to get an idea, this could be explained like this. Take what we do in the feasibility stage. Here, some basic actions that to be needed to be done. We may need to conduct geological investigations that need to go up to the natural hard rock, many meters underneath. When we are to select that best suitable site for the dam, then we have to make good assessment of prospective irrigable area when the locations and number of sluices are to be decided. The list goes on like this. So the minimum team of experts will comprise of at least planning engineers, engineering geologists, hydrologists, surveyors, to name few. So you also need geotechnical investigation results, surveys covering the whole project area, hydrological models, long-term hydrometeorological local data, and many more. So I'm sure you would have got an idea what precise decisions are needed to be made at each of the stage in the subject by the subject specialist. Okay, let us see how the development phases of irrigation systems happened in Sri Lanka. With the current available authentic literature, I can identify two distinct phases. It can be shown in this in this as shown in the graph. The from the 1st century BC, starting from Abaya Vavar in Anuradhapura, development up to much complicated transbasin diversions are recorded in our chronicles, Mahavansa, Pujavali, and many other chronicles. Then the civilization in the dry zone actually disappeared, as you all know, due to unknown reasons in 12th century AD, leaving a meager population in the dry zone. Majority of the people in the wet zone were migrated to wet zone. So next era is from the 12th century to 17th century, during which no irrigation development was taken place except a few small schemes in wet zone. So after the 17th century, initiatives were taken for revival of the ancient systems, which was very, very slow at the beginning, but picked up very fast after, especially after 1860s, and again in after the First and Second World War. So I like to table these three. I like to label these three eras as ancient and dark era, and also contemporary era in my presentation. Before going into the ancient era, I like to tell you briefly again what has happened during the contemporary era, because we have to understand the whole concept, what was behind it. During the Dutch period, there were few irrigation, there were some few irrigation engineers employed by the East India Company, by the Dutch government, who had done surveys for restoration of ancient irrigation works such as Kantale Vavar and Giant's Tank in Mannar. They have prepared some plans for the restoration. Then they did some new constructions such as Urubokka Dam in southern province and waterways along the coastal belt, which made some impacts over the wet zone agriculture. The British colonial rulers started their governing us from late 18th century. And it is recorded that there were some purposeful distractions done by them to the remaining irrigation systems, especially in Wellasser. So they have, even the British scholars, they themselves have written these developments in their reports. So after it was after the first rebellion. Then, however, after the second rebellion in 1948, British rulers realized that only the way to keep the inhabitants occupied is providing them water for their traditional livelihood, that is agriculture. So they started revival of ancient systems as usual, starting from legislations. Village tank restoration was started by mid 1850s by providing cement sluices, while earthwork was done on Stramadana, bearing the cost by the farmers themselves. The first stage of I believe that first usage of hydraulic cement, that is Portland cement in Sri Lanka, would have been uh, perhaps used for the restoration of irrigation works. Then restoration of large schemes such as Kantale, Kalawava started by end of 1860s. Actually, the interest of digging out the history of Sri Lanka by the British rulers was a result of translation of Mahavansa into English in 1836 by a scholar called George Turner, who was working in Ratnapura Kacheri at that time. I learned. So it was a fashion actually among the higher ranking officials of the government, from the governor downwards, to visit the ancient irrigation systems and collect historical, social, and technical information or the schemes, which remains, I must say, those are valuable records to date. So you can find their handwritten notes at the National Archives if you visit, which I like to identify as the national treasures. So I will complete the story of the 17th century, the contemporary era, with this slide. The two new reservoirs added to our topography in 19th century were Kirama Vava and Labugama reservoir by the British rulers. They started planning many irrigation systems in early 1900. Iranamadu in Kilinochi and Unnachi reservoir in Batiklo are the first two large scale reservoirs done in early 1900. So they added some flood protection schemes, saltwater exclusion schemes, especially aiming the wet zone agriculture too, in introducing new technology to our country. The Ceylonese era in irrigation sector actually started in 1930s, especially with the interest taken by by D.S. Senanayake as the first agriculture minister of State Council. Many large settlement schemes and river basin wise development projects were launched after that, especially Dalloya, Udawalawa, Mahavali Basin developments were spearheaded by those people who were working in irrigation department after 1930s. So the saga continues. There are more than 50 new large reservoirs by now, which were not in existence during Sinhala Kingdom. So we are with all these new reservoirs, with the ancient reservoirs, we are a country, a reservoir-rich country, I can say. Reservoir-rich country by now, comparing with the other countries having a very high density per capita reservoirs. So having completed the story of contemporary era, let me go back to explain some interesting facts in restoration of ancient irrigation systems. Similar to making sound judgments, actually similar to making sound judgments in new construction, for new reservoirs, irrigation engineer need to look into various factors in finalizing the restoration of ancient systems while planning. So let us see what they have to do. Now, we have to decide whether we can use the same earth bund and remnants of sloughs and other components while restoring the ancient system. There may be many instances where earth dam, same earth dam and sloughs were repaired and treated, while the new spillway was located on the same location that the ancient spill was located by our ancient engineers. So major reservoirs like Kantale, Kalavawa, Nachaduva, Hurulvawa are some of the examples for such schemes where the same embankment, same dam, and same location for the spill, and also some sluices, same sluices were used for the new restoration work. So some ancient abandoned systems cannot be revived due to dilapidated conditions where the components of the in some components are weak to get them into the new system. So remnant of ancient dam in Rambakanoya, the newly constructed Rambakanoya, you would have heard about it, is one such example. When the standard quality testing was done in the existing ancient bund, we found that the remaining section of the ancient bund cannot be used at all. There were a lot of flows there. So even with the modern embankment treatment method, we couldn't revive it. So it was not possible to recover it. You can see in the picture at the top, the new dam was constructed just in upstream of the old one. In the other photographs show the section of old dam and riprap, old ancient riprap and section of unfinished sluice. So irrigation department decided to go for a new dam close to the same location. It is the same location we adapted for the new dam. Now, you all have got fairly a good idea what sort of irrigation infrastructure is in operation at the moment in our country. So while other countries have sort of classification, their reservoirs or dams with the height of dam, capacity of the reservoir, construction material of the dam, and what are the uses and benefits and all that, we have a special unique classification. What is that? It is now we have a combination of dams like this, where the dams and systems are restored as it is, as explained by me earlier, and then new dams and systems that is associated with ancient dams. It may be in the same location, and also entirely new dams. There was no existence. So that is a very unique way of classifying our irrigation infrastructure that is very useful, especially in looking at the operation, looking in the angle of operation and maintenance. So let us now discuss some amazing features of the ancient irrigation systems. That is basically my topic today. That I have observed so far while actually restoring them. The only thing I have selected on among many such features, only few to highlight here. If we study the ancient system, we can observe the countless varieties of designs adopted by ancient engineers. You can find them in modern irrigation engineering theory books. You can't find the different types, this variety in the books. And these are not conventional stereotype designs. So the selection of suitable sites for dams and spillways, sluices, Bisokotu as usually mentioned for water management, flood management in reservoirs, slope protection in embankment, and transbasin digestion. Those are the topics I will briefly discuss today with you all to share some of the experience that has the irrigation engineers has gone through. Then this one, actually the extensiveness and the variety of our ancient system were revealed only after the completion of the topographical surveys maps done covering the whole country in 1900. Until then, no one had a proper account or the irrigation infrastructure, what we have, the country possessed at that time. So now this topo sheets I want to highlight here. As you all of know that topo sheet, this type of topo sheets covers 1,000 square kilometers, and within this area, you can, if you count, you can find 1,200 reservoirs, including small and medium. No large reservoirs are shown here, but you can imagine the extensiveness of of our irrigation works all over the country. Then I think now if I talk about the different varieties, different features, different type of irrigation systems, I may select this one as the type 1. It is a single small reservoir that evolved through the at the beginning of the evolution of irrigation system. So many of you may be familiar with these illustrations that shows the village reservoir and other associated features. Scholars have identified that Weber Coulomb or small reservoir is not just a single entity, but many other features have been built around to ensure that to ensure its sustainability. The social and environmental fabric is closely knitted to the system. For example, to minimize silting and water quality degradation, a tree belt has been introduced around the upstream periphery of the reservoir. Homesteads are located, you can see, at a higher ground in downstream that is having easy access to the farms. So these are only very few features. You can find any additional reading materials, lot of additional reading materials in the internet if you are interested in this regard. Then the second type is the I would select the cascade system, which it has actually recently most of you know that it has been declared as a UNESCO heritage site. Cascade system, Sri Lankan cascade system. So there are 150 cascade systems identified so far. Careful study of these systems reveal that small reservoirs in the system are interdependent and perfect water saving techniques have been used. These are ideal model to combat climate change impact because the resources are not independent, they always dependent each other, and belongs to the water from upstream will feed the downstream reservoirs, and the water shortage won't be shown in this type of system very rarely. Another type of thing I want to highlight here, the third type is the barrages across the main river. Usually even though in the international terminology they call barrages, but in our country we call it anicuttes. These especially what the barrages constructed across major rivers. Minipe across Mahavali, Alahara, these are very familiar words. I mean, text to you. I mean, if you know, I think most of you have heard about these anicuttes which have been restored by this time. And there are some major anicuttes that were built across the Adroya that are yet to be restored. So another example I want to quote here is a Tekkam anicut. This is Tekkam anicut. I'm sure many of you would have visited that place across Malwathoya in Mana. So if anyone in the audience has seen how violent the Malwatuoya river is during the floods. I request them to think how this amazing structure remains intact for many centuries and withstood against the countless number of flood events. Where now I am asking myself, where are the stability and geometrical feature designs notes of this type of structure? How our ancient engineers did these things. So how they divert river flows, and especially now when you construct a structure like this across a major river, we know that diversion of water is a real challenge to the engineers. So how did they do that? Now in the current context, what we are doing is constructing bypass tunnels. So we can't find that sort of structures there. We have to think about that. Now, this is the fourth type I want to introduce as a next variety. Now, this is Padavi Reservoir that has only one sluice, and it releases water not to the main canal, but to the main river again. Then Pickup Panicut located downstream distribute water to the irrigation system. This is very unusual design. One cannot find it in the textbooks again. So when the British engineers they conducted surveys in 1880s to restore Padavi River, they couldn't understand the design concept of the system. So I think most of you had heard about Henry Parker, a well-known famous British engineer, irrigation engineer, who has studied about the ancient irrigation systems and recorded in 1889 in one of his notes, like this quote, "We may not be able to put this into a known design model now, but the long experience the Sinhala engineers had over thousands of years would not have done a mistake. It will take some time to realize us that what is the concept behind this," unquote. So in 1950s only the irrigation department could understand the concept behind it, and it was able to restore the dam that was 3.2 miles long and having the capacity of 85,000 and feeding nearly nearly 1,400 acres of land. Then the other type, these are very peculiar system. Again, that is that cannot be found anywhere else in Sri Lanka except in Mana area. And to my knowledge, actually, you can't find it anywhere in the world, in any other country. So giant tank is located in a small drainage basin. It is not located in Malwatuoya basin. Adjacent to the Malwatuoya basin, a small drainage, in a very small drainage basin. So what happens here is the reservoir gets filled up through the feeder canal from Tekka Manicut, what I have shown in previous slide. Then there are nearly 162 small shallow reservoirs in the irrigable area. You can see the irrigable area with some blue reservoirs shown, but not all the 162 small reservoirs are shown here. But the irrigable area of these will be filled by the 10 major canals, main canals, in Maha season. That is to cultivate about 30,000 acres. What happens during the Yala season is the Yala season water inflow is not sure. It will be a unpredictable water that they get through Malwatuoya. So what they do is the small reservoir beds will be converted to the paddy fields and cultivation being done on Bethma method, limiting the acreage, and direct tissues will be fed by the main canals. So the same ancient irrigation, actually after restoration, the same irrigation practices were being introduced. That is, this system was restored in 1900. And I cannot think of a better alternative, better solution to suit this, through the irrigation engineering I learned to suit this topography. So that is the beauty of it. Then the sixth type, okay. The sixth type is that is a reservoir constructed not across the main river, but dam running parallel to the river bank. Usually, the modern irrigation engineer will select a dam axis crossing the river. But here you can see it is not only Rugam, there are many other reservoirs like this. Rugam River will get that was constructed not across the main river, but in a small tributary coming to the main river. And the dam, you can see the dam is running parallel to the river. The river was flowing like that, and Rugam Bund is parallel to the river. So again, this is a very unusual type. And then the water is released. How the Rugam tank will get the water from a feeder canal that was built in the upstream of the river, and with the augmented water, again from the reservoir will release the water again to the main river, and to cultivate the irrigable area that was in about 20 kilometers downstream. So please keep in mind that this concept was developed in 2nd century BC, not during the modern era. So how they did that? How they conceptualized this type of complicated system without having drone, without having precise survey instruments and things like that? That is still a mystery. Then the other type is the another type we can advise the large irrigation schemes such as Kalaivavu, Parakram Samudra, which is made by combining many reservoirs. So these large reservoirs are not a single one-shot construction, but evolved through centuries. Now you can see the in Kalaivavu, the Balaluva was first constructed by King Kuta Kalantissa. That is in 44. That is according to the records in Mahavansa in BC. And then the next section, Kalaivavu, main Kalaivavu reservoir was built by King Dhatusasana, as we all know, that is in 4th century AD. So my observation is how one now they need to have amazing knowledge to align those dams in different tributaries to make it finally to form a single reservoir. So how did they did that? So now similar to this Kalaivavu, Parakrama Samudra is also consisting with 7 small reservoirs. You would have heard about that. Then the next type is the most advanced stage, I must say. It's a transbasin diversion. So which I can define, it is the pinnacle of ancient irrigation technology that we had. So imagine water transferring from Kalaivavu to Pisavavu, going through 87 kilometers of length canal through the gravity, and so with so much precise survey instruments having nowadays. Actually, we have to put several experienced experts that we need to lay out such a canal. Even now, it is not a one man's job, but several people's work together, maybe few months, few years to set out a canal like this. So the next amazing feature in the ancient technology, as I mentioned, as I listed out, is the selection of the suitable sites for the dams and sluices and spills. Now, when locating Madhuroya. You can see this topo sheet. I am not sure whether it is clear in the screen. When located in Madhuroya Dam under the accelerated Mahavali project, the planning engineers in modern era, they had this topo map. You can see it indicates the best suitable site, ideal for a with topographical features for a large reservoir. So they located, they wanted to have a large reservoir here. But you can see in the topo sheet here that was in 1975 topo sheet. It shows a small reservoir. Trace only a small abandoned reservoir with a small dam. So while doing the feasibility study only, the engineers came to know that the extent of the ancient reservoir and the it was close to the new design. You can see in the new topo sheet, this was taken by me in 2000 from 2005 topo sheet. In comparing to that, they would never have thought that the large reservoir like into that scale would have been there in the past. So selection of suitable sites. Ancient engineers have selected the most suitable site to locate the spill. That is another amazing capability they had. So one should need to judge whether that downstream of the spill, there are a lot of things to be considered when locating a spill. Whether downstream spill is capable of absorbing the giant force created by spill water, and foundation condition and things like that. So in many large schemes that we restored, Nachaduwa, if you take Nachaduwa, Kalavawa, any place, the spill site is sound rock with sound rock outcrop, and that prevents covering and very suitable for today's spill location as well. Then the conventionally the sluice, selection of the sluice, suitable site for a sluice is again a challenge for the irrigation engineer. Now they have selected, the ancient engineers have selected the most suitable site to locate the spill. Now it is usually it is in conventional modern technology dams, in modern dams, it is located in the main dam. But in this ancient Wakaneri scheme, the sluice is located not in the main scheme, main dam, but in the saddle dam. You can see the sluice is located in not in the main dam, and in another place that the main canal will feed the irrigable area and through some other way. So the modern planning engineer has to go through hydrological, geological, and structural needs, structural phenomenon, considering all these things. So ancient engineers could have considered all these things, even though we don't have any trace of their records. Now the location selected to barrages across main river, like this again, they are the best suitable locations we can find. Now this is Alahara Anicut in across Ambanganga. Even the modern engineer is given a chance, they would have selected the same place. That is why it is happened. The same, the current Alahara Anicut across Ambanganga is at the same place of this ancient dam, ancient barrage, which was located in Ambanganga. Then sluices in Biso Kotua, it is used to control release of water. Is another marvel. Actually, if you go into more details, now we were talking about the suitable selection of suitable sites for the dams. Now I am going into the detail of Biso Kotua, more detail into the Biso Kotua. I'm sorry, it's 32. Yeah. Here again, it is not the typical uniform sluice you can find in ancient systems, but a vast number of varieties. Actually, the British engineers recorded that they found valve pits, as they called it in the 19th century, that is available only in Sri Lanka, and suggested that it is one of the crucial factors that contributed to success of our ancient irrigation system. So that is why we always get the Bisokotua is quoted as a marvel in our marvelous feature in our ancient system. Now, this is the famous Sorabora sluice. Many of you would have seen this. That is carved through the natural rock. Two sluices are there in the dam in both ways. So I wonder any modern engineer would have selected, you would have got such an imagination and skill to transform his or her design concepts so precisely. It is amazing. And then Madhuroya sluice is one of the most quoted structure in ancient hydraulic civilization. Many of you would have seen these photographs earlier. The what I want to highlight here in my slide is the 66-mile long sluice barrel found at the site. You can see a sketch at the left-hand side bottom. It was taken from a paper done by late Professor Leslie Gunawardena. The 66-meter long barrel found at the time site has shown that amazing design features. It is popular story that you also have heard, that find in the ancient sluice when the modern engineers did excavation for a new sluice, and we have seen advertisement in media as well on this story. But there was so much to move to add that. On similarity, I mean, the sluice barrel that was found at the site, the orientation is same as the one what the modern engineer had selected the orientation, and the special design features adopted to diffuse the negative pressures in the sluice barrel. Usually that is a serious problem faced by the irrigation design engineer. And we have the who have done the investigations have found the specially killed bricks were used to prevent seepages through the barrel, like wire cut bricks what we are using, but more advanced one, and special type of bonding materials that were used to get the bonds. And you can see the arch action, arch type structure that was used, that is to prevent any pressure coming from the top of the bund. And so there are many features that we can analyze, and still there are a lot of other features that we can see if you go into more detail. There are many technical papers written on this by the Canadian engineers after conducting carbon dating testing too, and also as I mentioned earlier, very informative paper done by one of our great historian, late Professor Leslie Gunawardena, if anyone is interested in reading. And there are many unrestored ancient cruisers still hidden in the jungle that we can do research around and probably find out more on this amazing technology that is available. So those are some pictures I have taken during inspection of those ancient hidden treasures. Then slope protection is another feature I have selected to highlight in my presentation. That can be observed in many ancient reservoirs still. So one can find the ancient riprap serving as wave absorbers. The left-hand side ancient riprap, what is in Giritale, and you can find in Nachadu and many other Turuvilla and many other reservoirs as well. Those are still intact. Then if I have put another photograph to show you to compare with the riprap that was constructed that was designed in 1950s under the current design guidelines, under the current knowledge we have. So you can compare these two and see the difference. So we can admire our ancient technology having compared to this type of features. Then if I go in, this is another riprap, another riprap that is hiding in Wilpattu National Park, still intact. That it is Kuda Village. Irrigation department is now conducting feasibility studies to restore this one, and even you can see with the heavy vegetative growth in the band itself, no, I mean, no disturbance to the riprap, the boulders there. They are still intact. So that is, those are the things that we can admire. Then the next thing, this next point I want to highlight is another feature that another amazing feature of flood management in the reservoirs. The flood management that is the most critical, I must say, the most critical challenge that water resource engineers face even today, because there are so many factors to be considered. So tedious calculations are there to decide the gates, gate sizes, number of gates and things like that to allow the spill water. So now this is Rugam Reservoir as I'm sorry, this one is the this is Parakama Samudra. Like in Rugam Reservoir, I explained earlier, many reservoirs experiencing frequent high floods. Dams have located, I mentioned that earlier also, dams have been located away from the main river. That is the one of the key key decisions here they have taken. So the Parakama Samudra that comprises the 7 reservoirs also located away from the main Ambanganga, and you can see the gates of Angamadil Anikat can be closed during the floods. In Ambanganga, when there are floods in the Ambanganga, we can close the gates in Angamadil Anikat, and then usually the Parakama Samudra will be augmented, the water will get through the Anikat feeder canal. So if when there is a flood, we can close the gates at the Angamadil Anikat, and the Parakama Samudra can be left safe. So another type of tactics they use for flood mitigation is a large reservoir. I mean, having flood detention, small reservoirs in upstream of the catchment. Usually now they were used as dry reservoirs that absorb surface water during a flood time. That is to ease the excess inflow to the main river. Then the transbasin, under the different varieties, I want to highlight the transbasin diversions that I need to emphasize. Again, it has the highest high achievement again by our ancestors. This is considered the most effective climate resilience measure nowadays in the water sector in the current context actually. So, but post-construction water management, we know in managing water, not only during the water shortage period, but during the flood period also, it is a huge challenge for the water resource engineers, irrigation engineers to manage this type of a complicated structure. Now, in the current context, we are having a lot of committees, lot of intergovernmental organization, decision-making committees to manage this type of structure. So I am wondering how the ancient in ancient system, what were the mechanism they use? How did they manage? Now this was there in ancient era as well. So that is still there are a lot of things that be unknown to us. We don't know what has happened during that dark era or even the ancient era. No proper records available. So with that note, actually, I want to conclude my presentation. Let us enrich the database of ancient marvels and make aware, especially local and international community of our unique heritage. And there may be a lot of things that still we have to find out, learn through our things, as mentioned at the beginning. There may be a lot of things that the modern engineer can take to their designs as their lens. So I will like to hand over the podium again to the organizers. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much, Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa, former Director General of Irrigation Sri Lanka. The presentation on ancient irrigation systems in Sri Lanka and engineering learnings was a very interesting topic, of course, for all the members in the audience, because especially as Sri Lankans, this is one of the most important and vital and one of the key elements topics that we can be proud of, especially this fraternity is mainly coming from an engineering background, mainly. So therefore, I think this information will be a boost and an energy to increase their enthusiasm to be more innovative and develop in the context. Engineer Kamaladasa, may I take this opportunity to put forward some questions over to you? We have received verbally some questions. Now, most of the times we see in the ancient world, in the ancient time that we elaborate, the density was mainly in the dry zone, not in wet zone. But today, our irrigation projects are mainly focused, especially in the wet zone. Do you think that there is a reason behind it? And how does it affect in terms of environment, in terms of sustainability, in terms of socio-cultural factors?
No, actually, I don't agree with that statement, concentrating the current systems in wet zone. Because if you see the map, if you go through the maps, I mean topo sheets again, you can find most of the major reservoirs, major irrigation reservoirs especially, are located in the dry zone, the new reservoirs as well as the restored ancient ones. Actually, in the wet zone, what you can find are mostly the hydropower reservoirs and water supply. Water supply in the sense there are only two reservoirs, Labugan and Kalatuava, others are hydropower. So for that type of infrastructure, we need the water throughout the year. I mean, the locations and things like that we can select there. And in the wet zone, actually, you can find the anecut schemes, and also, and keep in mind, we have to keep in mind that after 12th century, the population were concentrated in the wet zone. So the government had to find out, I mean, even in a small scale, there's mainly the anecut schemes and also small reservoirs. That is why you can find reservoirs or irrigation systems in the in wet zone now.
Okay, madam. I think the answer is very clear. Madam, we have received another question. Siltation and sedimentation is a major issue currently. how our ancestors addressed this issue. I think a typical question which elaborate today's topic, which is ancient irrigation systems, how we can learn from the ancient systems to the today's context,
Yeah.
siltation and sedimentation.
Yeah, actually, upper catchment management is the key to minimize the siltation and sedimentation. So, what we have heard, what we have learned from the ancient system, ancient strategy by the ancient king, were the development in the upstream was strictly prohibited. I mean, there was there were some norms that catchment cannot be developed. I mean, for any other purposes, deforestation and things like that were prohibited to contain that. Unfortunately, that is not happening at the moment, and we can see a lot of distractions around without any control, even though we have a lot of legislations to prevent that. It is happening with the blessings of many higher political influence sometimes. That is my answer to that.
Okay, madam. There is another good question. While thanking and appreciating your nice presentation and fruitful presentation, are there any research on ancient mortar? Because we are talking about the ancient mortar and how we are surprised by how they have built those construction elements. Are there any research on ancient mortar?
There are some, actually. I have not gone through in detail, but I have seen in some reports the constituents of some mortar. In one of the reports, I have seen in Tekkam Manikat. Actually, most of these research were done by the British engineers in early 1900, and also, as I mentioned, that Madruoya sluice barrel, when they were excavating the sluice barrel, they have found some mortar and did some research. But I think that is why I mentioned that there are a lot of things that we yet to explore, and especially the academics need to come into this arena and have their expertise to show us that sort of hidden knowledge.
Okay, madam, is Bisokutua the concept, the technology, the technique of Bisokutua is used in today's context, in today's context? Because
Yeah.
Bisokutua is one of the key things that we are surprised and proud of our ancient irrigation.
Yeah, definitely. In all the modern reservoirs, the Bisokutua, that means a sluice, is a must. So we have our own way of designing it, and we can compare with the ancient Bisokutua as well. As I mentioned in my presentation, the Madruoya Bisokutua has been compared with the current Bisokutua in the sense the sluice, and definitely we can have some parallel studies. I mean, to show that the mechanism of of these structures. In all our
Okay.
reservoirs, these Bisokutua, in other sluices are there.
Okay, madam, there is another question that the area acquisition, the land acquisition is one of the key issues. It has become a social issue. It has become a environmental issue, not only in terms of for the construction projects, not only in Sri Lanka, but also in many other countries, especially in the Southeast Asia. In India, you see this a lot of litigation relevant to this land acquisition, area acquisition for the construction. What can be the facts that we can adopt from ancient irrigation system in terms of area acquisition?
Actually, Shaminder, now I will quote the Adruaya, the recently commissioned reservoir in the Kurunagara district. So land acquisition was a serious problem. Now the water is needed there definitely to the irrigable area. So there is a norm, usually a thumb rule for us to decide how much of land can be inundated in a reservoir. To now say, for example, if we are to irrigate 1,000 hectares, how much area that can be inundated? I mean, it can't be another 1,000 hectares that we have to inundate, because the whole country is now. I mean, only very few areas are there without the settlements. No, there are even if it is not a settlement, at least there are some plantations. So our area is limited. Our country land area is limited. So with that limitation, we have to think about the inundation area that can be that we can afford as a country. Can we afford that our land can be inundated to the reservoirs? So that sort of questions are there always to the irrigation engineer. So they are now for a road project or any other civil engineering project, that won't be such a big problem, because it's in a small scale. But here it's a large scale acquisition that will be needed. So that is why we have to think about always. I mean, to take a decision on the reservoir construction, we have to see whether the area that is inundated, whether it can be acquired. Sometimes it is very difficult to acquire, as I mentioned about the Adruaya irrigation department struggled for more than 6 years, 6-7 years to acquire lands. So likewise, it's a huge problem. I can't give an exact answer how to come over that. That all depends on the area that is going to be inundated, and also the land they are to whom it belongs to and everything like that. So that's the thing I can contribute at this moment.
Madam, there is one last question which is related to the question that the answer that you gave. Do you think ancient engineers planned things ahead of climate change and salination matters?
No, now we can attribute a lot of things to our ancient irrigation systems like that. Now, climate change is a new phenomenon that we are talking about, and also environmental mitigation measures taken by ancient. Now, all these things, all these concepts are coming with the new knowledge that we acquire. So, likewise, now the many other, now we always admire the technology behind the thing, and there will be a lot of other things that not only the environmental, but the things like that you mentioned, the future predictions like climate change impacts and the social matters and things like that. So that still, I mean, yet to be explored. There are a lot to be explored. As in the last slide also, I mentioned that I am wondering how this amazing basin developments were managed even with the comparison of the current thing. So that is what I can say at this moment.
Well noted, Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa. The today's session was on ancient irrigation systems in Sri Lanka and engineering learnings. This is for the 8th INSEE Eye-to-Eye webinar session, while it becomes the 23rd INSEE Eye-to-Eye knowledge sharing session for month of February 2021. In order to thank the presenter and the other relevant stakeholders, may I invite our head of products and solution portfolio of Siam City Cement Lanka Limited, Dr. Musa Balbaki. Doctor, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to begin by thanking really everyone who attended this today knowledge sharing session. As Dishan said, this is our really consecutive 23rd edition since 2018 in summer. And of course, while we still cannot meet in person at our innovation to industry collaboration space in Palyagoda, it was really an absolute pleasure to welcome so many of you. And I hope soon we will be able to meet in person at our collaboration space. As we all experience every day since last April, when the country experienced a lockdown due to the pandemic situation, we really learn. Today we are in contact with Engineer Bhadra. We learn and we adapt to the new world of delivering a technical session virtually, and we would like really to stay always connected to you. Having said that, as a civil engineer, you know, I would like really to express my great gratitude for the outstanding really presentation and contribution to our speakers, Madam Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa, former Director General of Irrigation Sri Lanka. As an engineer, Madam Bhadra, I would like to really thanks to the knowledge you shared with us. You have really aroused the proud of every engineer belonging to the technical heritage of our country, Sri Lanka. That was really a very interesting presentation. And I really would like even to get back to your slide and read more, because it was very interesting for me. Once again, I would like also to thank you very much for the precious time you spent preparing and contributing to such a really fantastic event today. Thank you so much again. I would like also to thank my entire Eye-to-Eye team and colleague at INSEE for organizing such an online session over 8 consecutive months, because since April last year, we wanted to stay in let's say connecting to you. Therefore, we start this webinar with consequently, let's say, positive and encouraging feedback from the participants. Therefore, I would like to say that we really look forward to continuing to welcome you this year to our Eye-to-Eye knowledge sharing session, taking place, as you know, the last Thursday of every month, with exciting topics in collaboration with academic and industry experts. Therefore, I will not take more time. Finally, I hope that you stay safe and wish you a relaxing and blessing evening with your families and friends. Thank you so much, and hope to see you again soon, the next Thursday for next month. Thank you again, Madam. Thank you all the participants. Goodbye.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musa Balbaki, Head of Products and Solution Portfolio of Siam City Cement Lanka Limited, INSEE Cement. Let me thank again Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa for very interesting, fruitful and fascinating presentation on ancient irrigation systems in Sri Lanka and engineering learnings. So with this session, with this vote of thanks, the 23rd knowledge sharing session and also the 8th knowledge sharing webinar session conducted by INSEE Cement Innovation to Industry Collaboration Space will be concluded. we will be seeing all of you again with the knowledge sharing session in March 2021. Until that, have a safe and a healthy life. Good night, all.
Thank you.